ऑनलाइन क्लास अभी
हरे कृष्ण महाराज, दंडवत।
दंडवत हरे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे उमज्ञानतिभ्रान्तस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदामह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम् सर्वतमस्मदे गुरुपादपद्मनितला पृष्ठजगद्गुरु श्रीमद्भक्तिवेदांत नारायण गोस्वामी महाराज जी के अभय चरणारविंदों में अनंत कोटि दंड प्रणाम अर्पण करता हूँ। तदंतर त्रिवेणी स्वामी श्री भक्तिवेदांत दंडी महाराज रामकृष्ण संत श्री अनिरुद्ध प्रभु जी और समस्त वैष्णव के चरणों में था दंड प्रणाम। So we are now ready the first hour of lecture, page number we are on 97. Therefore, Srimad Mahaprabhu has instructed Sri Rupa Goswami, Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ataiva Shanta Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakaliya Shanta. Since a devotee of Krishna is free from all material desires, he is peaceful. Those who desire material enjoyment, liberation from worldliness and mystic perfections are restless. Devotees of Bhagavan are therefore far superior to those who have perfected jnana. So, even one who delights in the featureless aspect of the Absolute gives up the path of jnana and begins to perform Hari Bhajan upon attaining the slightest taste of bhakti. Chandra Charitamrita Madhya Lila says, Brahmananda hite Purnananda Lila rasa Brahmagyani Akarshiya Kare Atmavasha. The rest of Sri Krishna's pastimes, which is replete with transcendental happiness, alludes the Jnani absorbed in realization of Brahma and completely conquers him. For those who have not tasted an iota of bhakti, the bliss of the featureless aspect of Absolute Brahmananda appears to be great happiness. But in Srimad Bhagavatam it is stated, Atma Ramasya Munaya Nirgrantha Pyurukrame Kurvanti Aitu Kim Bhaktim Itham Bhutu Gana Hari. Even Munis who are deeply absorbed in contemplating Brahma, immersed in the delight of realizing Brahma, although already liberated from anger and false ego, performed causeless devotional service to Bhagavan. It is because Bhagavan's qualities are so full of Madhurya and indescribable charm that they attract everyone to him. In Lalit Madhav, it has been written, Riddhi Siddhi Vraja Vijayita Satya Dhamara Samadhir Brahmanando Gurapi Chamatkarayati Eva Tavat Yavat Premna Madhuripo Vashikara Siddhau Shadhinam Gandhopi Antahkarana Sharani Satam Nah Prayati. Inherently, prema is the perfect elixir to bring Shri Krishna under one's control. As such, as long as there is no trace of prema within the core of the heart, flourishing material mystic perfection siddhis, beginning with the ability to become smaller than an atom, anima, seems more exalted, and samadhi, trance, the fruit of practicing dharmas, beginning with truthfulness, as well as the great happiness of realizing Brahma, can produce astonishment within one's heart. It has therefore been established conclusively that the excellence of the bhaktas is millions upon millions of times better than that of liberated personalities, Mukta Purushas. In his teachings to Srila Rupa Goswami, Sriman Mahaprabhu presented a gradation of excellence. Eimat Brahmananda Bhari Ananta Jiva Gana 84 laksh Junite Kore Brahmana तार मध्य स्थावर जंगम द्विभेद जंगमित्यक जल स्थल चर विभेद तार मध्य मनुष्य जाति अति अल्पतर वेदनिष्ठ मध्ये अर्धेक वेद मुखे माने वेद निषिद्ध पाप बरे धर्म नाही गणे धर्माचारी मध्ये बहुत कर्मनिष्ठ कोटी कर्मनिष्ठ मध्ये एक ज्ञानी श्रेष्ठ कोटी ज्ञानी मध्ये हय एक जन मुक्त कोटी मुक्त मध्ये दुर्लभ एक कृष्ण भक्त. This universe is teeming with countless billions of living entities, which are of two kinds. Those that cannot move about, sthavar, such as trees, and those that can move about, jangam, such as humans, birds, and animals. Among 8.4 million species of living entities, which include aquatic life, beasts, and so on, there are very few kinds of human beings. And even among humankind, there are races and groups like Mlechas, uncivilized persons, Pulindas, primitive clans, Buddhists, and Shabaras, mountain tribesmen, who do not abide by the Vedas. Among the remaining members of humankind who do not acknowledge the Vedas, half pay lip service to them, but fail to carry out the injunctions of the Vedas in regard to dharma, religion, karma, prescribed occupational duties, and so on. Rather, they engage in sinful acts opposed to the Vedas. Among the remaining people who do not undertake the practice of Veda Dharma, most are intent on performing karma, fruitive acts, such as yajnas. Among tens of millions of such humans who are devoted to karma, there is hardly one jnani. And again, among tens of millions of jnanis, it is a rare person indeed who reaches the stage of perfection and becomes free of bodily identification and so on. Among tens of millions of such liberated persons, one rare individual will happen to be a devotee of Krishna. Among billions of Krishna bhaktas, one will be a true Krishna bhakta, whose heart is completely tranquil. In other words, having given up all other desires, such a devotee wants nothing apart from Shri Krishna and service to him. He alone is known as totally serene, being fully dedicated to serving Krishna. Those who hanker for material enjoyment, bhukti or liberation, mukti, cannot be considered totally serene. They remain restless, since one who covets bhukti or mukti can never be peaceful. Those who hanker for anima, becoming smaller than an atom, and other mystic perfections, desire self-satisfaction as well as fame and worship. Without doubt, they always remain dissatisfied. Aspirants for mukti are also in truth restless. Desiring opulence befitting the transcendental abode, jivas who obtain Salokya Mukti, Sashti Mukti, Sarupya Mukti or Samipya Mukti suddenly remain restless. And those who desire Sahitya Mukti, wherein their own existence is not retained, are also regarded as unfulfilled, because they do not long for personal happiness. They surely long for the cessation of their misery. Being troubled by the anguish of mortal existence, they engage themselves in sadhana leading to Sahitya Mukti. In order to become free of that misery, the sole root of the striving for Sahitya Mukti is the desire to suspend one's own suffering. How can a person be said to be at peace when he longs for the suspension of his unhappiness? Someone may say that the intent to obtain oneness with Brahma is in fact a longing for mukti, not a longing for the suspension of unhappiness. In this case also, it must be accepted that a person's motive of performing sadhana is a longing for the glory of attaining Brahma. This longing for exaltation also makes the mind restless. The longing to suspend unhappiness or the longing for the glory of attaining identification with Brahma persists until the last stage of sadhana. This is because one who covets Sahitya Mukti cannot have any goal besides this. Therefore, an aspirant for Mukti also is not at peace. Furthermore, as long as the living entity has not attained an eternal, continuous, and infinitely varied bliss, as long as his consciousness has not become thoroughly absorbed in that bliss, his restlessness of mind will not vanish. It is not possible. The living entity can find this bliss only while exclusively relishing the rasa of Bhagavan's pastimes through bhakti. The minds of those who have relished such bhakti ras, the melody of devotion, or lila ras, the melody of Sri Krishna's sweet pastimes, cannot be agitated even by the bliss of identifying with Brahma, Brahmananda. On the other hand, by relishing bhakti, which is full of lila ras, the Gyanis absorbed in Brahmananda become restless and a craving arises in them to relish bhakti ras, to which they are then drawn. Brahmananda hete purnananda lila rasa, Brahma Gyani akarshiya kore atmasata. This also confirms that the mind of the Brahma Gyani can remain steady in Brahmananda only as long as the topics consisting of the Madhurya of the names, forms, qualities, and pastimes of Bhagavan, Sri Krishna, the inexhaustible ocean of Bhakti Ras, do not enter his ears. Srila Shukadeva Muni and the four Kumaras headed by Chanaka are evidence of this point. From the time of their birth, they were totally absorbed in Brahma realization. But drawn by the qualities of Sri Krishna, they became engaged in bhajan. Thus, the possibility of remaining, thus the possibility remains that even the mind of a Brahma Gyani can be restless. It is for this reason that they too have been described as not peaceful. By contrast, the devotee who tastes bhakti ras has truly forgotten his own self. This is because he eternally serves Sri Krishna and thus relishes the rasa of his pastimes. Consequently, he is not just truly at peace, Shanta, but totally serene, Prashanta. In other words, he is peaceful to the superlative degree. 5L. Jnana is not nourished by the mercy of bhakti. In the above text, bhakti's supreme excellence has been declared. Why then do we see that in certain parts of Shastra, Jnana is described as primary? This has now been answered with the following analogy. Although Sri Bhagavan is Sarva Shaktiman, the omnipotent and collective reservoir of all transcendental qualities, he made Indra his elder. Accepting subservience to him, Bhagavan came in the form of Uddhav, Upendra, Vaman, the younger brother of Indra, and maintained Indra, king of the demigods. In every way, wise persons understand this as Bhagavan's quality of mercy. It is not at all indicative of his inferiority. Similarly, we should understand from scriptural statements that establish Jnana as prominent and Bhakti as being merely superlative of Jnana, that it is solely to nourish Jnana that the supremely independent and transcendental Bhakti Devi, by accepting the mode of goodness, has mercifully become a limb of Jnana. Wise and learned persons have ascertained this to be the grace of Bhakti. It is with highly nuanced deliberation that Srila Vishwanath Thakur presents this analysis, in which he firmly establishes the independent nature of Bhakti Devi. A question may arise in regard to those who perform the practice of Jnana mixed with Bhakti. We find scriptural statements such as Krishna Bhakti Bina Taha Dite Nare Phala. Without the help of Bhakti, no practice can bestow its fruit. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Accordingly, to attain liberation, which is the fruit of Jnana, practitioners of Jnana practice Bhakti also. In such practice, Bhakti is present as a limb of Jnana. Jnana is predominant and Bhakti Devi is a secondary position. How then will the independent nature of Bhakti be established? Furthermore, in Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhakti of such a Jnani is called Sattviki Bhakti, or devotion in the mood of goodness. In this case, how will the transcendental Nirguna aspect of Bhakti also be proved? The Reverend author has beautifully reconciled this with an analogy. In the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the pastime of Sri Vamandev have been described. Despite Sri Vamandev's supreme independence, unlimited potencies and embodying all transcendental qualities. By his own free will, he appeared in the form of Upendra, the younger brother of Indra, king of the demigods. Only for Indra's benefit did Vamandev accept subordination to him. On the pretext of begging 3 steps of land from Maharaj Bali, Vamandev, with his first 2 steps, took possession of the earth and the heavenly planets. And with his third step, he sent Bali Maharaj to the lower planetary system of Patalu. He then gave the kingdom of heaven to Indra and thus maintained him. Shri Vamandev accepted the name Upendra. By his own free will, he became Indra's younger brother and always offered him the respect due to an elder brother. How would learned persons, upon saying Bhagwan Upendra, maintaining and supporting Indra in this way, actually consider him inferior to Indra? Rather, they understand that the respect Bhagwan Upendra Vaman gave to Indra, as well as Upendra's efforts to maintain him, to be his mercy upon Indra. In this way, his supreme excellence is established and not his inferiority. To the extent the Jiva manifests his full potential by performing sadhana, his quality of being Jiva, that is his true consciousness, manifests in a similar manner to the extent that the compassion of Sri Bhagavan descends to the lowly and degraded. Bhagavan's quality of being Bhagavan is Bhagavat also manifest. In essence, the omnipotent and all-capable Bhagavan protected Indra and maintained him by becoming his younger brother. If we closely examine the past life, we see that Bhagavan Upendra was simply being compassionate to Indra. Despite being supremely independent, omniscient and all-capable, Sri Bhagavan, by his own independent desire, became the younger brother of Indra and even took on the name Upendra. In this way, he established Indra's preeminence. By doing so, Sri Bhagavan is not diminished in any way. Rather, it reveals his Bhakta Vatsalyata, or the quality of being affectionate to his devotee. Similarly, Bhakti nourishes Jnana, because without taking shelter of Bhakti, Jnana cannot grant any result. Like Shri Bhagavan himself, his Sarup Shakti, Bhakti is also supremely compassionate. The one and only cause of attaining either the aspect of absolute truth, that is devoid of qualities, Nirvishesh, or the aspect that is replete with all qualities, Savishesh, is Bhakti. Shri Bhagavan states, Bhaktyamam Avijanati. I am understood only by Bhakti. And Bhaktyaham Ekaya Grahya. I am achieved only by Bhakti. Srimad Bhagavatam 11.14.21. These and other verses in Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam support this. In this way, by performing the sadhana of jnana but not the sadhana of bhakti, one will only achieve liberation. One will only achieve tribulation. For this reason, intelligent jnana sadhakas perform the sadhana of bhakti along with their worship of Nirvishesh Brahma. In such jnana sadhana, the practice of bhakti is accomplished in an auxiliary manner. However, it is solely by the influence of such bhakti that jnana sadhana can achieve perfection. It is for this reason that in jnana sadhana, where the worshipper is seen as being not different from the object of worship, bhakti does not appear in her primary form. Rather, she appears in a secondary form as a limb of jnana. By not manifesting his power of independence, Upendra gave prominence to Indra, and by his own desire, he became secondary. This indicates that Upendra bestowed mercy upon Indra. Likewise, Bhakti Devi, by mercifully not manifesting her potency, of of independence, Bhakti Devi, by mercifully, by her own desire, remains in a subordinate position as the limb of jnana, and thus flourishes the practice of jnana. As a result of Jnani's practice, Bhakti bestows upon him knowledge, promoting the oneness of the individual soul and Brahma Ikya Jnana and liberation. Just as Upendra cheated Bali Maharaj and bequeathed the heavenly planets to Indra, similarly the most compassionate Bhakti Devi, despite being the function of Bhagavan's Swarup Shakti, and despite being nirgun or beyond all material qualities, mercifully and by her own independent desire, adopts the mode of goodness, Sattva mood, in order to make the Lord's practice of jnana complete. In Srimad Bhagavatam, this type of bhakti has been Satviki bhakti. Again, one may ask, this absolute truth has two manifestations or aspects. One is Savishesh, the personal aspect for Bhagavan himself, and the other is Nirvishesh, the impersonal aspect, devoid of any variety, Brahma. The Nirvishesh Swarup of the Supreme Absolute Truth is also transcendental beyond the modes of nature. Why then would Bhakti have to adopt the material quality of goodness in order to why then would Bhakti have to be adopted material quality of goodness in order to grant someone realization of this impersonal aspect, which is itself devoid of material qualities? Can Bhakti, which is free from material qualities, not give realization of Nirvishesh Brahma while remaining in her own Swarupa? In answer, it is said that Bhakti is the name of Bhagavan's Shaktis. Bhakti is the name of one of Bhagavan's Shaktis. The term Shakti indicates the capacity to act or accomplish. The Bhakti that manifests the supreme absolute truth, Para Bhakti, Para Tattva, is called Bheda. It's called Bheda. The mode of goodness illuminates the. So, in answer, it is said that Bhakti is the name of one of Bhagavan's Shaktis. The term Shakti indicates the capacity to act or accomplish. The Shakti that manifests the supreme absolute truth, Paratattva, is called Bhakti. Bhakti Devi, who is beyond all material qualities, reveals the Swarupa Bhagavan to the practitioners of Bhakti, who are free from any material desires and beyond the modes of material nature. However, the desire for liberation remains in the heart of Jnani Sadhaka. Unless one's heart is devoid of any material desire, Bhakti Devi in her transcendental form unless one's heart is devoid of any material desire, Bhakti Devi in her transcendental Swarupa cannot awaken there. Because the thorn-like desire for liberation in the heart of the Jnanis, that is because their heart is full of material desires and affected by the moods of material nature. Bhakti Devi adopts the mood of goodness and appears in their hearts to fulfill their desires. There is no other way for them to attain perfection in their respective practices. The mode of goodness illuminates the mode of passion. The mode of passion exhilarates and the mode of ignorance covers. Although the mode of goodness does not reveal the transcendental supreme absolute reality, it certainly gives the concept of the supreme absolute reality. In regard to bhakti in the mode of goodness, Bhagavan Kapil Dev says in Srimad Bhagavatam, Karma nirharam uddisha parasmin va tad arpanam yajet matsyavatam iti ma pratak bhavaya Pratak bhava satvikaha. When a person offers the results of his action to Bhagavan with the purpose of freeing himself from the effect of fruitive action and thus liberation, attaining liberation, or when he performs devotion to Bhagavan with desires other than to satisfy him, simply out of a sense of duty to him, his devotion is in the mode of goodness, sattviki bhakti. In order to please Bhagavan, one may offer him. In order to please Bhagavan, many offer him the fruit of their pious action, karma, desiring to become free from the results of karma or achieve liberation. Since without pleasing Bhagavan, one does not accomplish either. Without mercy of Bhagavan or bhakti, karma yoga and jnana are unable to bestow their fruits. When bhakti is performed with an interest other than pleasing Shri Krishna, it is not Shuddha Bhakti. Shastra instructs us to worship Bhagavan. Therefore, so many perform bhajan solely out of a sense of duty and not in full knowledge of Bhakti Tattva. Their bhakti is not aimed at attaining bhakti, nor is it for the pleasure of Bhagavan. For this reason, their bhakti is not nirgun or beyond the modes of material nature. It is known as Sattviki Bhakti, devotion in the mode of goodness. The above mentioned Bhagavatam verse states that Bhakti grants liberation. Therefore, Srila Jiva Goswami Maharaj said, Kaivalya Kama Sattviki, the desire to become. Therefore, Srila Jiva Goswami Maharaj said, Kaivalya Kama Sattviki. The desire to become one with Brahma is of the nature of goodness. Thus, it is apparent that the sadhana to achieve liberation is devotion in the mode of goodness, since jnana on its own is unable to grant liberation. Bhakti arises from bhakti. Text 6a. Bhakti arises from bhakti. Bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya. Iti bhaktehe phalam prema rupi seveti swayam mahashakti. Bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya. Bhakti arises from bhakti. According to these words of Srimad Bhagavatam 11.3.31, the fruit sadhan bhakti is prema bhakti. The fruit of sadhan bhakti is prema bhakti. Prema is the crest jewel of all spiritual attainments. Thus, like Bhagavan, his splendid internal potency, Bhakti Devi is omnipresent, all controlling and all nourishing, all attractive, supremely independent and self-manifesting. Piyush Vaishnav Bhakti, Srila Vishwanath Thakur, citing evidence from Srimad Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures, has firmly established the self-manifesting, frame-independent, narrow computer. It has been stated previously that it is by the mercy of any supremely independent, great saintly personality, Mahapurush, that one attains bhakti. Bhakti Devi, who is situated in the heart of the Mahapurush, is the sole cause of that mercy. For without bhakti, mercy cannot arise. Similarly, consequently, bhakti is the cause of bhakti. Consequently, bhakti is the cause of bhakti. By determining this, the independent and self-manifesting nature of bhakti has been proven. Srimad Bhagavatam 11.3.31 directly establishes how bhakti is the sole cause of bhakti. Smaranta smarantascha mito agoga haram harim hari bhaktya samarayo स्मरन्तः स्मारयन्तश्च मिथो अगौग हरम हरिम भक्त्या संजातया भक्त्या विभ्रति Speaking in this way, it is by Prema Bhakti, which has appeared from Sadhan Bhakti, that the Premi Bhakta, his body shivering in ecstasy and his hair standing on end, remembers Shri Hari and makes others also remember him. In the practice of karma, yoga, jnana, and so forth, the means of sadhana differs from the goal sadhya. The sadhana of the fruity workers, karmis, is to offer oblations, yaga, perform sacrifice, yajna, and so on. And their goal is betterment of the heavenly planets. The sadhan of the Gyanis includes withdrawal of the mind from sense pleasures, shama, restraint of the senses, dharma, and profound and repeated meditations. Nididhyasana. And their goal is to merge into the impersonal aspect of the Supreme Lord, Brahma Sahibja. The sadhana of the yogis is restraint, yama, observing prohibitions, niyama, discipline of the body, asana, breathing exercises, pranayama, and so forth. And their goal is to merge with Paramatma, Paramatma Sahibja. To the degree that their various practitioners approach perfection, their practice reduces. Finally, they rid themselves of their burdensome practice altogether and become absorbed in its perfection. Thus, their practice sadhana and their perfection sadhya are entirely distinct from each other. This can be easily understood. By contrast, sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti, and prema bhakti are the comparative and superlative stages of the same practice. By contrast, sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti, and prema bhakti are the comparative and superlative stages of the same practice. The previous stage of bhakti becomes the cause of the next stage of bhakti. Therefore, as the practitioner of bhakti progresses towards prema bhakti, his loving, his practice arguments, it does not end. This is because in the stage of sadhana bhakti, his taste for devotion has not yet solidified. At the stage of bhava and prema, however, that taste becomes extremely condensed. Narottam Das Thakur has said, पहले से प्रेम भक्ति अपक्वे साधन रीति भक्ति रसायन तत्व सार प्रेम भक्ति प्रेम भक्ति is when love for Krishna is fully mature or ripe, and sadhana prabhu is the same devotion which has not yet ripened. This is the essence of the characteristics of Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpatarvesha kripa sindhivajabhadanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo. Thank you so much for listening to the class. So I appreciate very much. See you next time for the Chaitanya Example class. Thank you so much. Vanchakalpatarvesha kripa vaishnavebhyo namo. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Maharaj Dandavat Pranams. Ananga Mohan Prabhu, Jai Diwani, please, thank you.